Hello folks, Alex here. This is Alex Unabridged, and today I've got a tag video for you. It's the Give My Regards to Broadway tag. So yes, the Give My Regards to Broadway tag. This is a new one by Troy Tradup. Hope I'm pronouncing your name right there, Troy. Troy tagged me the other day, and I have to say this is a fantastic tag. I love this tag. I'm from a theatre background originally myself, and I do love a bit of musical theatre. I am, however, not going to be singing the lines for this. Each prompt is inspired by a line for a lyric from a famous Broadway musical, but you don't want to hear me sing them, believe me. So let's crack on with them, shall we? So number one is Fiddler on the Roof. If I were a rich man, recommend a book in which someone becomes very wealthy or very poor over the course of the story. My first thought was The Hobbit, but then Troy did that one, so I had to come up with another one. So I'm going to go for a kid's book for this one, and that is Charlie and the Chocolate Factory by Roald Dahl. So yeah, Charlie Bucket is your main character, lives with his parents and grandparents in poverty, and in the same town there's the chocolate factory, Willy Wonka's chocolate factory, which is a mysterious place where no one ever goes in and no one ever comes out. Yet still they produce all of this wonderful chocolate, and yeah. So if you don't know the story, there's an announcement that there's going to be a tour for 5 lucky people who find golden tickets in bars of chocolate. So 4 are found, and then Charlie finds some money and buys himself a chocolate bar, and he finds the 5th. Then he takes his grandpa Joe on the tour. Yeah, one by one, the other contestants, the other ticket holders, meet their demise, shall we say? And Charlie's the one left, and Willy Wonka leaves him the chocolate factory, gives him the chocolate factory, so he's gone from nothing to having this whole world and this whole business and this whole world of magic and chocolate. So yes, wonderful story. When I was a kid, I had the I think it was the 1985 edition. My notes. Yes, the 1985 edition, which has got illustrations by Michael Foreman in, as opposed to Quentin Blake, who did the illustrations for a late version. I love Quentin Blake's stuff. It's so tied to Roald Dahl stuff for me. But yeah, fantastic story, like all Roald Dahl's, fantastically imaginative, wonderful characters. So yeah, as a kid's book, it's brilliant. It still holds up, today. And incidentally, one of the first theatre pieces I ever performed in was the musical of Charlie and the Chocolate Factory. So it does hold quite a special little position for that as well, for that memory. Okay, question number 2 is Annie. The sun will come out tomorrow is the prompt. Recommend a book that takes place after the end of the world. Okay, this one was quite easy and quite hard because I do read quite a bit of post-apocalyptic stuff, but I've got to go with what I think is my favourite book ever so far in terms of what I've read, and that is The Passage by Justin Cronin from 2010. So yeah, this takes place just before an outbreak of a virus, and mostly afterwards, over the course of the trilogy of books, mostly after the outbreak of this virus that turns people, they're kind of like vampires, but vampires isn't really used as a term. It's not that, they're virals, but they are essentially vampiric. And it's the book is set in the United States. As far as we know, the rest of the world is kind of pretty much wiped out as well. But in the States, there seems to be a lot more trouble from the virals. and this follows a kind of variety of characters in a variety of places, but the passage itself, the first book, is pretty much it's kind of not road trip, but kind of it's a mission, a little bit like kind of Lord of the Rings in terms of you've got to walk a lot to get places. I love the characters in it, but really the world building is fantastic from Justin Cronin, and it's just one of those that every time I read it, and I've read it quite a few times now, and it's not a short book. It's just one of those that just I continue to just get more and more out of, and it's kind of a comfort read. I think it's one of those that I'll probably read at least every couple of years, if not every year. And I have it on audiobook now as well, and the audiobook is also very good, so I can stick that on when I just want a comfort listen. So yeah, The Passage is that one. Prompt number 3 is from Hamilton, which I don't know. I want to be in the room where it happens. Recommend a book in which a character is in a room where they shouldn't be at a key moment. This one took some thinking about, Troy, I tell you. The one I've come up with is The Name of the Rose by Umberto Eco. It's a tough one in terms of to read. Eco doesn't kind of it doesn't spoon feed. I'll give him that much. In terms of language, his choice of words, and this is one reason why I like his writing, his choice of language, his choice of words is very, very specific in terms of his meaning, what he wants to say. And The Name of the Rose is, it's quite a difficult read until you kind of get into that style, but it's a fantastic story. It's set in Italy in like the 1300s. And it's set in an abbey of a wealthy abbey of Benedictine monks, and there's two other monks from elsewhere, William of Baskerville and Adzo of Melk. They are at the abbey because some of the monks have been suspected of heresy, and they've had to go to kind of help with the dispute. But whilst they're there, murders start to happen, and so William turns detective, and he uses kind of logic and philosophy, theology, and kind of his sort of curious and investigative mind to solve these murders. He has to sort of collect evidence and decipher like symbols and coded books and manuscripts. There's a lot of like strange books and things like that in this. They have to get into this sort of secret room and of the forbidden library, this labyrinthine library, and that is the room that I'm talking about. The room plays, the room in the library, this forbidden place, plays quite a big role. It's quite it's a mystery. It's a murder mystery basically, but it uses a lot of sort of academic and intellectual kind of ideas in terms of like semiotics and sort of biblical analysis comes into it. Literary theory, sort of medieval studies, that kind of stuff. It's a really interesting piece. I'd not really read anything like it before, and it took me a while to get through it because of its language. But it wasn't the first Eco that I'd read. That was Foucault's Pendulum, which is also difficult to read. I had to look up a lot of words whilst I was reading that. But that's one reason why I like Eco. It's a challenge, but for me it's always worth it. But yeah, so The Name of the Rose is that one. Okay, prompt number 4 is Oklahoma, where the wind comes sweeping down the plain. Recommend a book that makes very good use of its setting. It wouldn't be a list from me without some Stephen King on it. Really, I can't help myself. I've got to put something of his in, and this one was quite an easy one. This is The Shining for me, from 1977, because I think the overlook is just brilliant. The hotel that Jack Torrance and his family are in for the course of that book. And you know, the hotel is a character in that book. You know, it has atmosphere and personality and malevolence and all of that kind of stuff, and all the things that are connected with that kind of environment. You know, they all play a part in the creepiness, the hauntings, things like that. And it's, you know, the idea of, you know, a hotel being, it's, you know, it's somewhere where you generally get lots of people and you know, holidaying and, you know, kind of you know, good things happening, when it's just this small, like, you know, small band of people, this small, you know, kind of family group of Jack, his wife, and Danny, his son, in this grand hotel, and in winter, you know, when they're snowed in and there's no way out, it suddenly becomes very claustrophobic, even though it's huge and there's rooms everywhere, and, you know, there is outdoor space and stuff, but even that is, you know, that's terrifying. Some of the stuff that happens in the grounds of the hotel, topiary animals. Anybody who's read it knows what I'm talking about. But that was the bit that still gives me chills when I think about it now. Shining was the first Stephen King book I read when I was about 16, and that was what got me into Stephen King originally. And I read it whilst on holiday in the mountains in quite an old hotel. And I think that helped with the atmosphere. I think that helped kind of place me in at least a similar sort of environment, and that definitely, like, added to it. So yes, The Shining by Stephen King. Okay, prompt number 5 is from Phantom of the Opera. Turn your face away from the garish light of day. Recommend a book in which a character actively embraces the dark side of their personality. Again, this one, I read a lot of horror, so there's you know, plenty to pick from. But I have actually gone with a play, which I thought was, you know, I thought we're talking musicals here. We might as well keep on the theatre side of things for one of them. And the play it's not a musical. God, it'd be weird if it was. Is a play by Anthony Neilson called Normal, which is it's a play based on the case of Peter Curtin, who was a serial killer in the 1930s in Germany, who was the so-called vampire of Dusseldorf, or the Dusseldorf monster. I think Nielsen uses Dusseldorf Ripper as the name, and it's told from the perspective of his lawyer, a guy called Wehner, and Curtin's on trial for I think 9 murders, really horrific murders. Wehner is brought in to defend him. And Vayner kind of goes in deciding this should be easy because I'm not going to try and prove his innocence. All I need to do is prove his insanity. But he quite quickly realises that is not going to be the case at all. And he kind of gets caught up in this kind of disturbing sort of relationship with Curtin, and comes to the conclusion that Curtin is actually, you know, scarily sane. It's an examination of madness and sanity, and what is normal, and, you know, questions that idea of what we think of as normality and how we as individuals define that. It's an assault on the senses, I did have an opportunity to see it at, I think it was the Edinburgh Festival years and years ago, and it's really unsettling. I mean, in terms of the way that it's written, for me, it's chilling. It's one of those. It's darkly comic as well, which kind of makes it even more chilling. So yeah, if you do like reading plays, I would recommend that. But I would recommend anything by Nielsen, to be honest, because he's one of those where it's like, ooh, it's an assault, but it's I always found him fascinating as a playwright. So yes. Okay, next prompt is wicked. Something has changed within me. Something is not the same. Recommend a book you loved so much it made you feel like you could defy gravity. This one, again, was quite an easy one. I have to go with my favourite book that I read last year, which is Project Hail Mary by Andy Weir, which seems fitting, seeing as a lot of it takes place without gravity in space. Yeah, this one just, it's funny, it's poignant, it's sad, it's got one of the best relationships, like friendships, in it that I've ever read. It had me in tears through both, kind of being moved and just from laughing. And yeah, it was my first introduction to Andy Weir's writing, so I will definitely be reading more. But basically, yeah, I can't say too much about the plot in case I spoil things. I don't want to spoil anything for people who haven't read it, because it kind of relies a little bit on it. Well, it definitely relies on that kind of element of surprise. But basically, it opens, with our main character Ryland Grace waking up, in space, not knowing what the hell's going on. He's got, he hasn't got a clue where he is, what he's doing, why he's there, how he got there, all that kind of stuff. And as it goes on, it kind of, we get flashbacks that are used really well, I have to say, because they are him flashing back as his memory comes back, and he pieces together what's going on and what has happened and what he has to do. And it's really well structured in terms of the flashbacks and the current time. I had it as an audio book, which was read by Ray Porter, and it is a brilliant performance. It really is. So I would certainly recommend the audio book. But yeah, it definitely left me just with a bounce in my step. It was one of those where it's one of my favourite reading experience or listening experiences I've ever had. It will stay up there as one of my favourite books, I think, for a long time because of that. So yes, the final one, which, as Troy says, is a bit of a cheat, is from Greece, and that is "You're the one that I want, ooh, ooh, ooh." Name someone you'd like to do this tag. I'm gonna cheat myself on this because I'm very new to the whole booktube thing. I don't quite feel comfortable tagging people yet in stuff, but I'm just gonna throw it open and say, if you want to have a crack, have a crack. It's been a really fun one to think of the books for. I will be back soon with more ramblings about what I've been reading, what I'm going to read, and general other booky things, and more tag videos as well. I am enjoying doing some tag videos. It's kind of a nice way to get into doing this whole booktube lark. But yeah, thanks again to Troy for tagging me and for coming up with this tag. But yes, for now, thanks very much for watching. I will hopefully see you back here again soon in the comments. But for now, from me, that's ta-ra.